Kang Daiho walked through the massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber and felt small for the first time in his life. The room was huge beyond anything humans had ever built. The ceiling stretched so high that clouds formed near the top. Hundreds of seats arranged in perfect circles rose up like steps on a mountain. Each seat was made for a different alien species, and most of them looked down at the small human section near the bottom. Daiho had been a soldier before he became a diplomat. He had fought in 3 wars and never backed down from a fight. But this place was made to make visitors feel tiny and weak. The architects knew what they were doing when they built it. Lee Minji sat beside him checking her data pad for the 100th time. She was the smartest person Daiho had ever met, and she looked nervous. That made him nervous too. Behind them sat 12 other humans who represented different colonies and departments. They were the best humanity had to offer, but they looked like children compared to the aliens around them. The Velkari delegation took up an entire section on the right side. They looked like giant insects that had learned to walk on 2 legs. Their leader was called Prime Minister Krextal, and he was twice as tall as any human. His black eyes never stopped moving, and his mandibles clicked constantly. The clicking sound meant different things in their language, but right now it sounded annoyed. On the left side sat the Threx representatives. They were made of living crystal that changed colors when they talked. Their leader was Elder Silthara, and she was over 3,000 years old. Her crystal body glowed with a soft blue light that got brighter when she was angry. Right now, she was glowing very bright. Between the 2 major powers sat dozens of smaller alien groups. Most of them were quiet and looked scared. Daiho recognized some of them from the intelligence reports. Many were client species who did whatever the big powers told them to do. Others were neutral traders who just wanted to stay out of trouble. Deep voice filled the chamber and everyone went quiet. The speaker was a massive alien that looked like a walking tree. He was the council moderator and his job was to keep meetings fair. Daiho hoped he would actually do that job today. The council recognizes the human delegation for integration. Proceedings. The moderator announced Prime Minister Krextal stood up first. When he moved, his whole body made clicking and scraping sounds. Honored council members, he began, we are here to discuss terms for bringing the human species into proper galactic civilization. Daiho did not like the word proper, but he stayed quiet and listened. Humans have shown they can travel between stars, but they lack proper understanding of galactic law and order. Krextal continued, the Velkari Empire has prepared a standard integration treaty that will help guide them to their proper place. Elder Silthara's crystal body pulsed with bright light as she stood. The Threx Confederacy agrees with our Velkari colleagues, she said, in a voice that sounded like singing glass. Humans show potential, but they are clearly not ready for full membership in galactic society. Minji leaned over and whispered to Daiho, they are talking about us like we are not even here. Daiho nodded but kept watching. He had learned in the military that you should listen to your enemies before you make any moves. A holographic document appeared in the center of the chamber. It was huge and covered in alien writing that slowly translated into human languages. Daiho started reading and felt his stomach drop. The treaty was not really a treaty at all. It was a surrender document. According to the terms, humans would give up 70% of their colonies to be managed by the Galactic Council. All human military forces would be disbanded except for small police units. Human technology would be reviewed and restricted by council experts. Humans could not make contact with new alien species without council permission. Human trade would be controlled by council regulations. Human ships could not carry weapons larger than personal defense systems. The list went on and on. Every item took something away from humanity. Daiho stood up slowly. Ambassador Kang Daiho requesting permission to speak. The moderator's tree-like face turned toward him. Permission granted. Thank you, moderator, Daiho said clearly. We appreciate the council's time and effort in preparing this document, but we have some concerns about the terms. Several aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. Concerns. Repeated Prime Minister Krextal. What concerns could a species so young have about proven galactic law? Daiho kept his voice calm and professional. The terms seem very one-sided, he said. What does humanity gain from this arrangement? You gain the protection and guidance of superior civilizations, Elder Silthara replied. Your species will be safe from the dangers of uncontrolled expansion. We also gain restrictions on our technology, loss of our colonies, and no voice in decisions that affect us, Minji added as she stood beside Deho. Young species always think they know better than their elders, said a voice from the smaller delegations. The Velkari and Threx have thousands of years of experience, Deho looked around the chamber. With respect to the council, we came here hoping to discuss partnership, not submission. The clicking from the Velkari section got louder and angrier. Partnership, Krextal said, humans have been in space for less than 200 years. The Velkari Empire has ruled star systems since before your species learned to make fire. That may be true, Deho replied, but we have learned much in our short time among the stars. Like what? Demanded Elder Silthara. What could humans possibly teach species that have mastered space travel for millennia? Deho thought carefully before answering. We have learned that strength comes from cooperation, not domination. The chamber erupted in sounds of alien amusement. Even the smaller delegations seemed to think this was funny. Cooperation, repeated Krextal, spoken like a truly naive species. For the next 3 days, the council allowed humans to present their counter-proposals. Deho and his team had prepared dozens of alternatives. They suggested shared colony management. They proposed joint military exercises. They offered technology exchanges. They requested equal representation in council votes. Every proposal was rejected without serious consideration. Humans do not understand their place, Elder Silthara said on the second day. They speak of equality when they have achieved nothing, compared to the great powers. Your species controls 12 star systems, added a delegate from the smaller powers. The Velkari Empire controls over 3,000. On the third day, Deho tried one more time. We ask only for the same rights any sapient species deserves, he said. The right to govern ourselves, the right to defend our people, the right to choose our own path. Rights are earned, not given, Krextal replied. When humans have proven themselves worthy, perhaps they will earn more consideration. How do we prove ourselves if you will not give us the chance? Minji asked. By accepting the wisdom of your betters, Elder Silthara answered. The chamber fell quiet for a long moment. Deho looked at his team and saw the same expression on every face. They had come here in good faith, hoping to find partners among the stars. Instead, they had found the same old story that humans knew too well from their own history. The strong taking from the weak and calling it civilization. Deho stood up and began collecting his papers. His team did the same without needing to be told. Ambassador Kang, where are you going? The moderator asked. The final vote has not been taken. Deho looked around the chamber one last time, at the arrogant Velkari with their clicking mandibles, at the ancient Threx glowing with superiority, at the smaller powers who stayed quiet and followed orders. We came here in good faith, he said clearly, but it seems you have already made your decision about us. He walked toward the exit with his team following behind. The chamber erupted in noise as aliens called out questions and demands. At the doorway, Deho stopped and turned back. When you realize you need partners instead of subjects, he said, you know where to find us. Then the humans left and the great doors closed behind them with a sound like thunder. Captain Yoon Seojin stared at the empty space where human ships should have been. 3 months had passed since the failed negotiations, and the Velkari Empire expected humanity to come crawling back by now. Instead, something impossible was happening. The humans had vanished. Not literally vanished, of course. Their colonies were still there and their ships still moved between stars, but they had stopped talking to anyone outside their own species. Every attempt to contact human vessels got the same automated response in perfectly polite galactic standard language. Human space is currently closed to non-human vessels. Please find alternate routes. Thank you for your understanding, Seojin had been ordered to investigate what the humans were doing. Her ship, the Talon's Edge, was one of the fastest scouts in the Velkari fleet. She had expected this to be an easy assignment. Humans were primitive after all. How much could they accomplish in 3 months? The first sign that something was wrong came at the edge of human space. There used to be a simple beacon that marked the border. Now there was a massive space station that appeared on her sensors like a metal moon. It was bigger than anything humans had built before, and it was covered in technology her instruments could not identify. "Unidentified vessel, you are approaching restricted space," came a calm human voice over the communication system. "Please state your intentions." Seojin activated her ship's recording systems. The Empire would want proof of what she found. "This is Captain Yoon Seojin of the Velkari Empire," she announced. "I am conducting a routine patrol of this sector under galactic law." "Captain Seojin, we appreciate your dedication to galactic security," the human voice replied. "However, this sector is currently under human administration. No patrol activities are required from external forces. Humans do not have the authority to restrict galactic space," Seojin said firmly. "We are not restricting galactic space, Captain," the voice answered. "We are managing human space. You are welcome to continue your patrol in any non-human territory." Seojin felt her mandibles click with frustration. The human was being perfectly polite and perfectly impossible to argue with. "I demand to speak with your superior." "I am Captain Bei Hyenwoo, and I am the senior officer at this station," the voice said. "How may I assist you?" "You can start by explaining what this station is and why humans think they can block Velkari ships." "This is Frontier Station 7, and we are not blocking anyone, Captain Seojin," Bei replied. "We are simply directing traffic away from active construction zones for safety reasons." "Construction zones?" "Yes, Captain. We are conducting extensive infrastructure improvements throughout human space. We would not want any visitors to be harmed by our activities." Seojin activated her long-range sensors and tried to scan deeper into human territory. What she found made no sense. Her instruments detected dozens of massive energy signatures that had not been there 3 months ago. There were new stations around every human colony and strange ships moving in formations she did not recognize. "Captain Bei, what exactly are humans constructing?" "Various projects to improve life for our citizens," came the unhelpful reply. "Is there anything else we can help you with today?" Seojin knew she was being dismissed, but she was not ready to give up. "The Galactic Council has concerns about human activities. Please feel free to submit any concerns through proper diplomatic channels," Bei said. "We always appreciate feedback from our galactic neighbors." "What diplomatic channels?" Seojin demanded. "Your embassy on Proxima Station is empty." "Our diplomatic situation is currently under review," Bei replied. "We will announce our new policies when they are finalized." Seojin realized she was getting nowhere with words. She activated her ship's stealth systems and tried to slip past the station. Immediately, alarms began sounding on her bridge. "Captain Seojin, please return to your previous position." Bei's voice was still calm, but there was something else there. "Now, your ship is experiencing technical difficulties." Seojin looked at her control panels in shock. Every system on her ship was being jammed by some kind of field she had never encountered before. Her engines were running, but she was not moving. Her weapons were powered, but would not target anything. Even her communication array was being controlled by an outside signal. "How are you doing this?" she whispered. "Human space is equipped with the latest safety systems," Bei explained. "We would not want any visiting ships to accidentally damage themselves, or others. This is an act of war." "This is traffic control, Captain," Bei corrected. "Your ship is undamaged and you are free to leave at any time. Simply return to non-human space and all your systems will function normally." Seojin had no choice. She directed her ship away from human territory and immediately felt her systems return to normal. She tried to scan the human station one more time, but her sensors could not penetrate whatever was protecting it. Back at Velkari Command, the reaction to her report was explosive. Prime Minister Krextal himself demanded a full briefing. "Impossible," he declared when she finished. "Humans do not possess such technology. With respect, Prime Minister, they clearly do possess it now." Seojin replied. 3 months ago, their ships could barely match our outdated patrol vessels. Another officer said, "How could they develop superior systems so quickly? Maybe they already had the technology and chose not to use it," suggested Intelligence Chief Vortan. The room went quiet at that thought. The idea that humans had been hiding their true capabilities was disturbing. It meant everything the Velkari thought they knew about humanity was wrong. Similar reports were coming in from across the galaxy. The Threx Confederacy had sent their own scouts and received the same polite rejection. Traders who had done business with human colonies found their routes blocked. Even communication satellites could not penetrate the barrier around human space. Elder Silthara called an emergency council session to discuss the situation. The Great Chamber felt different somehow, with the human section sitting empty. Honored. "Council members," she began, "we face an unprecedented situation. An entire species has withdrawn from galactic civilization. They cannot simply ignore the council," declared Delegate Mordak from the Trading Guild. "Commerce depends on open space lanes. They are not ignoring us," corrected Threx analyst Cole Sean. "They are actively excluding us. Every probe we send is detected and turned away by technology we do not understand." Prime Minister Krextal's mandibles clicked angrily. "This is what happens when we show mercy to primitive species. They mistake kindness for weakness. Perhaps we should consider the possibility that we misjudged human capabilities," suggested a small voice from the neutral delegations. The suggestion was met with scoffs from the major powers. "Humans have 12 star systems," Krextal reminded everyone. "We have thousands. Numbers do not lie." But even as he spoke, reports were coming in that made those numbers seem less important. Human colonies that had been struggling settlements 3 months ago were now showing massive industrial output. Mining operations that had produced small amounts of rare metals were suddenly showing production levels that rivaled major Velkari facilities. Most disturbing of all were the refugee reports. Several minor species that had been fighting losing wars against pirates or aggressive neighbors suddenly stopped asking for help. When council investigators tried to find out why, they discovered that these species had somehow acquired advanced defensive technology overnight. "Where are they getting these weapons?" demanded Velkari General Zeekstal. Intelligence reports suggested the answer, but no one wanted to believe it. The weapons signatures matched no known galactic technology, but they did match the energy readings detected around human space. "Humans are sharing their technology with our enemies," Krextal declared. "These species are not our enemies," protested neutral delegate Yarben. "They are simply trying to survive. Anyone who opposes Velkari interests is an enemy." Krextal replied. Elder Silthara glowed with cold blue light. "The real question is how humans acquired such advanced technology so quickly. Either they have been hiding their true capabilities, or they have received help from an unknown source. Who would help humans against the established galactic order?" asked Mordak. The question hung in the air unanswered. No major power would risk antagonizing both the Velkari and Threx by secretly arming humanity. But someone or something was clearly helping humans accomplish impossible things. Captain Yoon. Seojin was given a new assignment. She was to monitor human space from a safe distance and report any unusual activity. What she found over the following weeks changed everything she thought she knew about galactic politics. Ships were arriving at human territory constantly, but they were not human ships. They came from dozens of different species, and they all seemed to be carrying supplies or raw materials. When they left, they carried finished goods and equipment that made Velkari sensors go crazy with energy readings. "They are building some kind of industrial network," she reported to command, but it was more than that. The ships coming and going belonged to species that had never worked together before. Ancient enemies were sharing cargo holds. Neutral powers were carrying weapons for species they had never even met. Somehow, humans had become the center of an alliance that no one in the major powers had even noticed forming. The galaxy was changing, and the great powers were starting to realize they might not be in control anymore. Kim Taehyun brushed ancient dust from the stone carvings and smiled. The ruins on Cathara Prime were older than human civilization, but the story they told was familiar. A young species reaching for the stars and finding both wonder and danger among them. 6 months had passed since humanity walked away from the Galactic Council. 6 months of silence that had made the great powers nervous and the small ones hopeful. Now Kim stood in ruins that belonged to the Threx Confederacy and waited for the inevitable confrontation. The Threx archaeological team arrived exactly on schedule. Their crystal bodies gleamed in the morning light of Cathara's twin suns as they approached the dig site. Kim could see their confusion in the way their bodies flickered between colors. They had expected to find primitive grave robbers, not a professional excavation. "You are trespassing on Threx sovereign territory," declared team leader Shalnara. Her crystalline form glowed with authority and annoyance. Kim stood up slowly and dusted off his hands. "Actually, we are invited guests," he replied politely. "The Cathari people asked us to help preserve their ancestral heritage." "Impossible!" Shalnara's body flashed bright red. "The Cathari are a client species under Threk's protection. They do not have authority to invite outside researchers." "Perhaps you should ask them about that," Kim suggested as, if summoned by his words, a group of Cathari emerged from the ruins. They were small reptilian beings with intelligent eyes and careful movements. Their leader was an elderly female named Isara, who had been working with Kim for 3 months. "Welcome, honored Threk's visitors," Isara said formally. "We are pleased you have come to see our progress." "What is the meaning of this?" Shalnara demanded. "Why are humans on our archaeological site? This is not your site," Isara replied calmly. "These are Cathari ruins on the Cathari homeworld. We have invited human experts to help us understand our own history." Shalnara's crystal body pulsed with angry light. "The Threk's Confederacy has protected and guided your people for over 1,000 years. We have always managed your archaeological resources, managed them into storage vaults where our own people cannot see them," Isara said. "Professor Kim has helped us create a museum where Cathari children can learn about their ancestors." Kim watched the exchange with interest. The Threks had always treated archaeology as a way to collect valuable artifacts. They took the best pieces and left the rest to decay. But the Cathari wanted something different. They wanted to understand their own past. "We are also learning fascinating things about ancient technology," Kim added. "The Cathari developed some remarkable innovations before they achieved spaceflight. Primitive local technologies are not significant," Shalnara dismissed. "Actually, they are quite advanced." Kim corrected. "Your people might find them interesting if you approached with an open mind instead of preconceptions." The Threk's team spent the rest of the day examining the site. Kim could see their confusion growing with every discovery. The human excavation was far more thorough than anything the Threks had ever attempted. Every artifact was carefully catalogued and preserved. Every carving was documented and translated. Most importantly, everything remained on Cathara for the Cathari people to study. "How did humans develop such archaeological techniques?" Shalnara asked reluctantly. "We learned from studying our own past," Kim explained, "and from listening to what other species wanted instead of telling them what they should want." That evening, the Threk's team made camp near the human dig site. Kim invited them to share dinner, and they accepted with obvious curiosity. Around the campfire, he told them about human archaeological methods and philosophy. "We believe the past belongs to the people who lived it," he said. "Our job is to help them understand their own history, not to collect trophies." "But surely scientific knowledge should be preserved in secure facilities," argued Threk's researcher. Mole Van. "Scientific knowledge grows when it is shared, not when it is hoarded," Kim replied. "The Cathari have made discoveries about these ruins that my team never would have found alone." "What kind of discoveries?" Shalnara asked. Despite herself, Kim smiled and gestured toward Isara. "Why don't you tell them?" The elderly Cathari moved closer to the fire. "My ancestors built these temples to study the movements of the stars," she began. "But they were not just observers. They found ways to predict solar flares and cosmic storms that could damage spacecraft." "Ancient Cathari had no spacecraft," Molvan protested. "No, but they knew others would someday," Isara continued. "They left instructions for building warning systems that could protect travelers between the stars." The Threk's team exchanged glances. Such technology would be valuable for any spacefaring civilization. "Of course, the instructions are carved in ancient Cathari script," Kim added casually, "which only the Cathari people can fully understand." The implications were clear. For 1,000 years, the Threks had treated the Cathari as primitive subjects. Now, those same subjects possessed knowledge that could benefit everyone, including the Threks themselves. Over the following days, more revelations emerged. The ruins contained star charts that showed safe routes through dangerous nebulae. There were formulas for predicting asteroid movements decades in advance. Most remarkably, there were detailed records of contact with other ancient civilizations, including some that the Threks thought they had discovered first. Your ancestors were remarkable explorers, Shalnara admitted to Isara. They were, the Cathari leader agreed. And they taught us that knowledge shared is knowledge multiplied. Kim could see understanding growing in the Threx team. For the first time, they were working with another species instead of ruling over them. The results spoke for themselves. We would like to propose a formal collaboration, Shalnara said finally. The Threx Confederacy has resources that could support expanded research. That is generous, Isara replied. But we would need to remain equal partners, not subjects. Equal partners, Shalnara repeated the words as if testing their meaning. Like our arrangement with the humans, Isara explained. They provide expertise and equipment. We provide local knowledge and cultural understanding. All discoveries belong to everyone. Kim nodded. That is how the Free Association operates. Free Association, Mulvan asked. Our network of cooperative research projects, Kim explained. Over 60 species working together to preserve and understand galactic heritage. The Threx team was quiet for a long moment. The idea of 60 species working as equals was foreign to their experience. How do you resolve disputes without central authority? Shalnara asked. We talk to each other. Kim said simply. We find solutions that work for everyone instead of imposing solutions on someone. But surely some species try to take advantage. Some tried it first. Kim admitted, but they quickly learned that cooperation works better than exploitation. As the weeks passed, the Threx team found themselves drawn into the human way of working. They discovered that treating the Cathari as equals produced better results than treating them as subjects. They learned that sharing knowledge led to new insights that none of them could have achieved alone. Most importantly, they realized that the galaxy was much larger and more complex than the great powers had ever imagined. There are hundreds of species we have never seriously studied, Shalnara confessed to Kim one evening. We were so focused on maintaining control that we never learned what our client worlds could teach us. It is not too late to change that, Kim suggested, but the Confederacy leadership will never accept such a radical shift. Some will, and some will not. Kim acknowledged. Change usually happens gradually. Reports from the Cathera dig site eventually reached the highest levels of Threx government. Elder Silthera herself reviewed the discoveries and their implications. The ancient Cathari warning systems had already prevented 3 cargo ships from flying into a solar storm. The star charts had revealed a safe route that cut travel time between Threx worlds by 15%. But the political implications were more significant than the technical ones. If primitive client species possessed valuable knowledge, then the entire foundation of Threx superiority was questionable. Similar reports were reaching the Velkari Empire from their own territories. Human research teams were working with dozens of species that the Velkari had dismissed as unimportant. Mining worlds were revealing new extraction techniques. Agricultural planets were sharing crop innovations. Even primitive worlds were contributing insights that benefited everyone. The great powers were discovering that the galaxy contained far more wisdom than they had ever bothered to seek. Captain Song Yubin read the daily intelligence report from his ship's communication officer. The New Horizon had spent 6 months traveling between small worlds and forgotten colonies. Everywhere they went, they found the same thing. Species that had been ignored or oppressed by the major powers were joining together in voluntary associations. How many new members this week? He asked. 14 systems have formally joined the Free Association, the officer replied. Another 23 are sending observer delegations. Any conflicts or disputes, 3 minor trade disagreements all resolved. Through mediation, the officer said, the Zilani and Mokhtar have agreed to share mining rights on the border world Kepler 438b. Song smiled. 6 months ago, the Zilani and Mokhtar had been shooting at each other over that same world. Now they were partners. Admiral O. Gunwu watched the Velkari fleet approach on his tactical display and felt sadness instead of anger. 1 year had passed since humanity walked away from the Galactic Council, and still the great powers had learned nothing. They saw cooperation as weakness and partnership as surrender. Now they were about to discover how wrong they were. The Velkari force was impressive by old galactic standards, 50 heavy cruisers and 200 support vessels, all armed with weapons that had dominated space battles for centuries. They had come to crush the human colony on Kepler 442b and send a message to any species that dared to defy the established order. Admiral reported Communications Officer Lim Chae-young. The Velkari fleet is demanding our immediate surrender. What exactly are they demanding? Gunwoo asked. Complete withdrawal of human forces from this system and transfer of all colony assets to Velkari administration, Gunwoo sighed. The colony on Kepler 442b was home to 3 million humans and 12 million refugees from 6 different species. The Velkari wanted to claim it because rich mineral deposits had been discovered in the asteroid belt. They cared nothing for the people who lived there. Send a response, Gunwoo ordered. Tell them we are willing to discuss shared mining rights and joint development of the system. Admiral protested Tactical Officer Park Jin-soo. They have brought a war fleet. They are not here to negotiate. Then we will remind them that there are better ways to resolve disputes, Gunwoo replied. The Velkari response came within minutes. Prime Minister Krextal himself was commanding the fleet, and his message was simple. Surrender immediately or face total destruction. No negotiations, no compromise. Submit or die. Gunwoo had hoped it would not come to this, but he was prepared. The Free Association had grown to include over 200 species in the past year. Most were small powers that the galactic empires had ignored or exploited, but together they represented nearly half the inhabited systems in the galaxy. More importantly, they had been busy. Tactical display, Gunwoo ordered. The main screen showed the Kepler 442 system in detail. The Velkari fleet was moving in standard attack formation toward the inner planets. They expected to face maybe a dozen human ships with primitive weapons. Instead, they were about to encounter something completely new. Sir, the Velkari fleet is accelerating, reported Park Jin-soo. They will reach weapons range in 30 minutes. Signal all Free Association vessels. Gunwoo commanded, execute Defense Plan Omega. What happened next had never been seen before in galactic warfare. Ships began appearing throughout the system as if materializing from empty space. Not human ships, but vessels from dozens of different species, all working together in perfect coordination. The Cathari contributed their advanced early warning systems. The Mokhtar provided shield generators that could protect entire planets. The Zilani had developed new engine designs that made ships faster and more maneuverable than anything the great powers possessed. Together, they had created a defense network that turned the entire star system into a fortress. Admiral. Park Jin-soo's voice was filled with awe. I count over 800 ships on our sensors, and those are just the ones we can see, Gunwoo replied. The Velkari fleet slowed as their sensors registered the massive enemy force. Krextal had expected to face a few dozen primitive vessels. Instead, he was looking at a fleet that outnumbered his forces 20-1 and was equipped with technology his analysts could not identify. This is Prime Minister Krextal of the Velkari Empire, came the transmission. You are in violation of galactic law and will face the consequences of your actions. Gunwoo opened a channel to reply. Prime Minister, this is Admiral O. Gunwoo of the Free Association Defense Force. You are welcome in this system as visitors, but we cannot allow you to threaten the people who live here. These worlds belong to the Velkari Empire by right of superior civilization. These worlds belong to the people who chose to make them home, Gunwoo corrected. We invite you to join us as partners in developing this system for everyone's benefit. Partners. Krextal's voice dripped with contempt. The Velkari Empire does not partner with inferior species. Then you have made your choice, Gunwoo said quietly. The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. The Velkari fleet, attacked with weapons that had conquered hundreds of worlds. Their plasma cannons could vaporize mountains. Their missile systems could track targets across star systems. Their shields had never been penetrated by enemy fire. None of it mattered. The Free Association fleet moved like a living thing. Ships from different species worked together as if they shared a single mind. When Velkari plasma beams struck their targets, the energy was absorbed and redirected. When missiles locked onto Free Association vessels, decoy systems made them attack empty space. Most remarkably, when Velkari ships tried to retreat, they found their engines disabled by fields they could not detect or counter. "Admiral," reported Engineering Chief Han Ji-woo, "the new harmonics generators are working perfectly. We are disrupting their engine systems without causing permanent damage." "Good," Gunwoo replied. "Remember, we want to capture their ships, not destroy them." That was the most shocking thing about the battle. The Free Association forces were not trying to kill their enemies. Every weapon system was designed to disable rather than destroy. Every tactic was aimed at capturing vessels intact. The goal was not victory through destruction, but victory through demonstration. Within 6 hours, the entire Velkari fleet was floating helpless in space. Their weapons were offline, their engines were dead, their communication systems were jammed. But their life support was untouched and their crews were unharmed. "Admiral, we are receiving surrender signals from the Velkari flagship," reported Chaeyoung. "Beam me aboard," Gunwoo ordered. The transport technology was another innovation from the Free Association. Instead of using shuttles, they could move people instantly between ships using quantum entanglement fields. It was faster and safer than any method the Great Powers possessed. Gunwoo materialized on the bridge of the Velkari flagship and looked around at the defeated crew. Prime Minister Krextall stood in the center of the bridge, surrounded by clicking advisors and nervous technicians. His black eyes burned with rage and humiliation. "I am Admiral O. Gunwoo," he announced. "I come in peace." "Peace," Krextall spat. "You have just destroyed the finest fleet in Velkari history." "Actually, we have captured it intact," Gunwoo corrected. "Your ships are undamaged and your crews are safe." "What do you want?" Krextall demanded. "Tribute submission." "The usual demands of conquest," Gunwoo smiled sadly. "We want you to understand that there is a better way." "Better way to do what?" "To live among the stars," Gunwoo explained. "To build civilization, to share the galaxy with other forms of life." He gestured toward the main display, which showed the Free Association fleet. Ships from dozens of species moved in formation like a school of fish. Each was different, but all worked together toward common goals. "Look at them," Gunwoo said. "Former enemies working as allies. Ancient rivals sharing resources. Weak species made strong through cooperation." "Impossible," Krextall clicked. "Species fight for dominance. It is the natural order." "It is one possible order," Gunwoo acknowledged, "but not the only one and not the best one." Over the following hours, Gunwoo took Krextall on a tour of the Free Association fleet. The Velkari leader saw Cathari engineers, working alongside Threx scientists. He watched Mokhtar warriors training with human tactical experts. He observed species that had been enemies for centuries sharing meals and comparing star charts. "How do you prevent conflicts?" Krextall asked finally. "We do not prevent them." Gunwoo replied, "We resolve them through discussion and compromise instead of force." "But surely some species try to dominate others." "Some tried at first," Gunwoo admitted. "But they quickly learned that cooperation produces better results than conquest." "What happens to species that refuse to cooperate? They are free to go their own way." Gunwoo said, "We do not force anyone to join us." "Then why did you attack my fleet?" "We did not attack you," Gunwoo corrected. "We defended ourselves when you threatened to destroy a peaceful colony." Krextall was quiet for a long moment. The idea of defensive action that did not seek to punish or control the aggressor was foreign to his understanding. "What will you do with my ships and crews?" he asked. "Return them to you, of course?" Gunwoo replied, "Along with technical data that will help you upgrade your systems." "Why would you give us superior technology?" "Because technological advancement benefits everyone," Gunwoo explained. "The more advanced all species become, the more we can accomplish together. You could use your technological advantage to conquer the Velkari Empire." "We could," Gunwoo agreed. "But then, we would become the very thing we oppose, conquerors who impose their will through force." The concept seemed to break something in Krextall's understanding. His entire worldview was built on the idea that the strong ruled the weak, because that was natural and inevitable. The existence of a powerful force that chose not to rule challenged everything he believed. "What do you want from the Velkari Empire?" he asked finally. We want you to consider that there might be better ways to interact with other species, Gunwu said. We invite you to observe how the Free Association operates. If you like what you see, you are welcome to join us as equal partners. Equal partners, Krextal repeated. Equal partners, Gunwu confirmed. Kang Daeho walked through the same massive doors he had exited 2 years before, but everything was different now. The Galactic Council chamber had been completely rebuilt. Gone were the towering seats arranged to make visitors feel small. Instead, there were circular rows where every delegate sat at the same level. The architecture spoke of equality rather than hierarchy. Most importantly, the human section was no longer empty. Daeho now carried the title of Ambassador General of the Free Worlds Coalition. Behind him sat representatives from over 200 species that had chosen cooperation over domination. The old Galactic Council had governed through fear and force. The new one would operate through consent and consensus. The changes had not come easily. The past 2 years had seen the collapse of 2 galactic empires and the birth of something unprecedented. Species that had been enemies for millennia were learning to work together. Ancient hierarchies were being replaced by voluntary associations. It was messy and complicated and absolutely necessary. Elder Silthara sat in the Threx delegation, looking older than her 3,000 years. Half the Confederacy had joined the Free Worlds Coalition, while the other half clung to old ways of thinking. The crystal being who had once glowed with absolute authority now flickered with uncertainty. Prime Minister Krextal was not present. The Velkari Empire had fractured completely when most of their client species declared independence. Krextal had retreated to the core Velkari worlds and refused all contact with the outside galaxy. In his place sat General Vorkesh, who represented the Democratic Velkari Republic. The revolution had been surprisingly peaceful once the people realized they had a choice. Honored delegates, Daeho began as he stood to address the assembly. We gather today not as conquerors and subjects, but as equals seeking common solutions to shared challenges. The translator systems rendered his words into hundreds of languages, but the meaning transcended mere translation. For the first time in galactic history, every species had an equal voice in their own destiny. 2 years ago, my people walked away from negotiations in this very chamber. Daeho continued. We were told to accept our place as subjects of superior civilizations. We were offered the choice between submission and isolation. He gestured toward D, the diverse gathering around him. Today we offer a third option, partnership, based on mutual respect and shared benefit. Representative Choi Nari of the Human Colonial Administration stood to present the first formal proposal. The coalition requests admission of the Rigel Mining Cooperative as a full member, world. The Rigel system had been a source of conflict for decades. 3 different species claimed mining rights, and the old Galactic Council had never been able to resolve the dispute. Under coalition principles, the solution was simple. All 3 species would share the resources and work together to extract them efficiently. The floor recognizes Delegate Isara of the Cathari Republic, announced Moderator Yarben. The tree-like being had been elected to his position by unanimous vote. His commitment to fairness had earned respect from species across the galaxy. An elderly Cathari stood slowly. 2 years of freedom had transformed her people from timid subjects into confident partners. The Cathari support this proposal, she announced. We have worked with all 3 species in the Rigel system and can confirm their commitment to cooperative development. One by one, delegates rose to speak. The Mokhtar praised the mining cooperatives' environmental protections. The Zilani commended their worker safety protocols. Former enemies vouched for each other's good faith and honest dealing. When the vote was called, it was unanimous. The Rigel Mining Cooperative became the newest member of the Free Worlds Coalition. This is impossible, muttered Elder Silthara to her aide. Species do not simply agree with each other. Perhaps they do, when they have reasons to trust each other. The aide suggested that was the secret of the coalition's success, trust built through countless small acts of cooperation and good faith. When the Cathari needed help with solar storm prediction, the humans provided it freely. When human colonies faced food shortages, the Mokhtar shared their agricultural expertise. When pirate attacks threatened shipping lanes, dozens of species contributed ships to joint patrol forces. Each act of mutual aid built confidence that led to greater cooperation. Species learned that helping others ultimately helped themselves. The galaxy became safer and more prosperous when everyone worked together. Trade Coordinator Lim Chae-young presented the economic report. Coalition trade volume has increased by 400% in the past year, she announced. Living standards are rising on virtually every member world. The numbers told an impressive story. Open borders and cooperative resource sharing had eliminated artificial scarcities. Species that had hoarded technology for competitive advantage discovered that sharing knowledge accelerated innovation for everyone. The galaxy was becoming wealthier and more advanced faster than ever before. Most importantly, Chae-young added, we have eliminated piracy in coalition space through community policing and economic opportunity programs. That achievement particularly impressed the remaining neutral powers. Pirates had been a constant threat for centuries. Military expeditions and harsh penalties had never solved the problem. But when pirates were offered legitimate work and fair wages, most chose to abandon their criminal activities. General Vorkesh requested permission to address the assembly. The Democratic Velkari Republic was not yet a coalition member, but they had been granted observer status. Honored delegates, he began, I bring greetings from the free people of Velkari space and a formal request for membership consideration. The request caused a stir throughout the chamber. The Velkari had been the most aggressive of the old galactic powers. Many species still remembered Velkari oppression and exploitation. We understand that trust must be earned, Vorkesh continued. We are prepared to undergo the full integration process, including reparations to species harmed by previous Velkari policies. Ambassador Han Ji-woo of the Justice and Reconciliation Committee stood to respond. The committee has reviewed the Velkari application and recommends a graduated membership process. Full membership would be granted after successful completion of restorative justice programs with affected species. It was a controversial proposal, but it reflected coalition principles. Justice was important, but so was redemption. Species that genuinely changed their behavior should be welcomed into the community of free worlds. Elder Silthara requested the floor. Her crystal body glowed with dim blue light as she stood. The Threx Confederacy wishes to announce our decision regarding coalition membership, she said formally. The chamber fell silent. The Threx had been debating membership for months. Their ancient pride struggled with the idea of equality, but their practical nature recognized the benefits of cooperation. After extensive deliberation, our ruling council has voted to dissolve the Confederacy and petition for membership as individual Threx worlds, Silthara announced. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Species that had feared Threx domination for millennia erupted in discussion. The idea that the ancient empire would voluntarily dissolve itself was almost unthinkable. We have learned that strength comes not from ruling others, but from joining with them, Silthara continued. We ask for the patience of this body as we learn new ways of interacting with our galactic neighbors. Deho stood to respond. The Coalition welcomes all species that embrace our principles of equality and cooperation. We look forward to working with the free worlds of former Threx space. As the session continued, more announcements followed. The Antaran Federation requested military assistance against slavers operating near their borders. The Spiral Arms Trading Guild proposed new shipping routes that would benefit dozens of worlds. The Scientific Exchange reported breakthrough discoveries made possible by unprecedented interspecies collaboration. Each item demonstrated how much the galaxy had changed. Problems that had festered for centuries were being solved through cooperative effort. Species that had never trusted each other were sharing their most precious resources. The impossible was becoming routine. During a break in proceedings, Deho found himself standing with Captain Song Yubin, who had been elected to represent the Free Association of Explorers. Do you ever regret walking away from the original negotiations? Song asked. Deho considered the question. I regret that it was necessary, he said finally. But I do not regret the decision itself. Sometimes you have to walk away from a bad deal to find a better one. And this is better. Look around. Deho gestured toward the bustling chamber where dozens of species worked together on shared challenges, former enemies planning joint missions, ancient rivals sharing scientific discoveries, weak species made strong through mutual support. Yes, this is much better. Elder Silthara approached them slowly. Her crystal body flickered with nervous energy. Ambassador Deho, she said formally, I owe you an apology. That is not necessary. Elder Deho replied, It is necessary, she insisted. 2 years ago, we treated your people with arrogance and contempt. We assumed you wanted to dominate because that was what we would have done. We were wrong about your intentions and your capabilities. We all make mistakes, Deho said gently. The important thing is learning from them. Indeed. Silthara agreed. May I ask what humans saw that we missed?